One of the first things people ask when they see one of the boats we've restored is, who does your varnish and what varnish are you using? There is a lot to doing the perfect varnish job. I will share with you some of the basics in this video. Almost all our clear coating is done using a tung oil base marine varnish put out by the Waterlocks company. The Waterlocks company has been producing this quality product for nearly 100 years, and they are very consistent in their batches. We always know how it's going to go on and how well it's going to hold up. No matter which clear coating you choose to use, the sun and the water will eventually get the better of it, and it will have to be stripped back to bare wood. With the oil-based varnishes, they can easily be removed with just a little heat and a sharp scraper without damaging the wood. The two-part urethanes and epoxies are much harder and must be removed with chemical strippers. Notice here when we heat the varnish that we start at the bottom and work up. This helps avoid scorching. We always use a good sharp scraper and never scrape across the grain. Any cut or scratch across the grain will show up in the varnish job. For this reason, we never use orbital sanders on bare wood. We always sand with the grain, and we work down through the grits from 80 to 100 to 120, 150, and down sometimes to 220 to make sure there are no scratch marks in the wood. It is also important when sanding to achieve fairness. We often use blocks and profile sanders to accomplish this. Hard edges and corners won't hold varnish. For this reason, we ease all the edges to about a 1/8 radius. To even out the color of the wood and enhance the grain, we sometimes add a non-grain raising dye stain. We first apply 2 or 3 coats of the Waterlocks Marine Sealer. This sealer is a different formulation than their varnish and makes for a much better substrate than just thinned down varnish. Also, it doesn't require sanding between coats. We then start applying coats of the high gloss varnish. Every coat of varnish is important. We sand between each coat thoroughly with 220 or 320. We let the varnish dry for 24 or 48 hours between coats. It normally takes 9 or 10 coats to fill the grain of most woods. Once the grain is filled, we can block sand it flat and get that mirror finish. We never thin our varnishes. Most varnishes are carefully formulated at the factory. Anytime you put additives into a varnish, you alter the structure of the varnish, and it may not hold up as well as it was designed. If you are not happy with the properties of a particular varnish, it is best to get another varnish and get used to using that one. You will notice here that Jose doesn't overbrush the varnish. He simply puts it on and brushes into the wet. An even film of varnish will level itself as it dries. If you try to brush the drying varnish, the brush marks will stay in it. For this reason, if you've missed a spot, don't go back. Just let the varnish dry and don't miss it next time. The size of the brush is also very important. Sometimes on big large areas, to get enough varnish on fast enough to maintain a wet edge, we use up to a 3-inch brush. You can see here that Jose is actually using 2 brushes to get the varnish on evenly without runs or drips. We oftentimes use tape at certain stop points. In this way we don't have to take the time to cut in. We then very carefully remove the tape before the varnish is dry so that there's no tape line. We use only premium quality natural bristle brushes. These brushes are expensive, but with proper maintenance and care, they will last years and years. Immediately after each use, the brushes are thoroughly cleaned. Varnish must never be allowed to dry in the brush. We clean the brushes in diesel fuel or 100% mineral spirits. The brushes undergo a 3-stage rinse cycle. Each time the brushes are thoroughly washed, working all of the varnish out of the bristles. The last rinse is done in clean solvent, and then that solvent is recycled into the other rinses. The low VOC solvents do not work. These solvents contain water and/or alcohol. You should never wash the brush in water. Anytime water is introduced to a natural bristle brush, you can end up with a bad hair day. We never wash the brush in lacquer thinner either. We have found that once this is done, the brush will continue to drop particles into the varnish. We store our brushes by carefully wrapping them in aluminum foil. This keeps them from drying out, keeps the bristles in line, and the brush is ready for its next use.